Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Straight Tech here, and today I'm going to be telling you why the iPhone SE of 2020 is my favorite iPhone of all time. But before we get started, make sure you guys like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. Now, let's jump into it. So the 2020 iPhone SE was introduced last year around May, and it literally shook the tech world just because they didn't make any changes on this phone. So this phone looks exactly like the iPhone 8, but with a beefier gut. So the same body as the iPhone 8, but with an A13 Bionic chip and a better camera system. So literally it has the same screen size, same dimensions, same battery size, same a lot of old iPhone 8. So if you're into the iPhone 8 of back then and you want to upgrade to the iPhone SE, then it's not actually a bad idea, just because it's going to be a lot quicker and it's going to have better camera performance. But let me jump to the first thing that I loved about the iPhone SE, the size. So it had a 4.7 inch LCD screen. Yes, I know it's an LCD screen at 720p. Now in today's standards, that's pretty bad. I mean, for a $400 phone, there are other phones out there around the same price range that already come with 90Hz 1080p displays. So for a phone that is LCD 720p, it's not the best, but for some reason that did not bother me at all. Now the phone that I came from before that phone was the Oneplus 7 Pro. So that phone had a 6.67 inch AMOLED 90Hz 1440p display. So that's one of the best in class, even during that time. Even now, that's a really good screen. So when I went from that big and nice screen to a little 4.7 inch screen, I thought it was gonna bother me. Few days passed. Once I had the phone, I kind of just ignored everything about it. I still watched videos on it, I still did my regular routine tasks. So after a while, you just kind of get used to the phone, just like any average person would. And one of the reasons why I like the size so much is because I was able to reach every corner on the screen. So right now I'm rocking the iPhone 12. Even though this only has a 6.1 inch screen, it's not the biggest, but it's not the smallest either. I still find myself struggling to reach the top corners of the screen. Now, one of the reasons that still bugs me about Apple is that you cannot adjust the apps. You can't put it wherever you want. It still places them all the way to the top of the screen, unless you put widgets on top, which bring down the apps more lower. But other than that, if you're not into widgets and if you're trying to customize the screen, you're gonna be limited. It's not gonna be like an Android phone where you could customize it however you want, which is one of the reasons why I love Android. So from this one, what makes it easier for me is that I put the widgets on top. So I put 2 boxes of widgets on top of my apps, and that breaks down the apps a little bit lower, and it makes it easier for me to reach apps. Now, if I don't have widgets, then there's no easy way for me to bring down these apps, because like I said, wherever you're gonna place these apps, they're gonna bring them right to the top of the screen, which is kind of annoying because you do want to place it wherever you want, but at the same time, Apple is not letting you do that. So that's one of the reasons why I love the iPhone SE, is because it was a small phone, compact phone, and I was able to reach every corner of the screen. So it just bugs me that Apple has not created a software where you get to optimize the hand gestures on this phone. So for example, on Android phones, regardless of how big the Android phones get, because some phones are bigger than the Pro Max, it's not as hard to handle those phones, just because they have the back gestures that make you go back on your last previous app or whatever you're doing. So you can just slide from the right side of the screen down to the left, and that will bring you back to your last page, which is really convenient. Whereas an iPhone, you have to put your finger all the way to the left side of the screen and kind of swipe inward, which is annoying because half the time in my personal use it doesn't work. So you kind of have to maybe get used to it. But I just felt that when it comes to Android, I felt that they optimized the software a lot more better for using a big screen. So yeah, it is nice having a big phone just because you can watch content on there that makes it look a lot more better. But at the end of the day, when I had the iPhone SE, even though that one had a very small screen, it did not bother me at all. And there was no notch. At the end of the day, this one has a big notch right here, which is not annoying as it used to be. You kind of get used to it after a while, but in today's standards, when it comes to other Android phones that already moved down from that point, this is not the best thing out there. And so like I said, the iPhone SE did have big forehead and a big chin on the front of the screen, but it did not intervene with whatever you were watching. So let's move on to the next thing, what I like about the iPhone SE, the camera. So the camera on the iPhone SE was pretty darn good for a phone that cost only $400. In my opinion, I think it was beating phones that were priced at $600 or $700. So for a phone that comes with that type of camera performance at that low of a price, I think that is amazing. And it only came with one lens. It might bother you, it might not, because for a person who likes to use a camera a lot, for a person who likes to use a telephoto lens or maybe the ultra wide, maybe this phone might not be the best for you. But for me personally, I love the ultra wide. I do tend to use it a lot. But when I moved on to that phone that just comes with one lens, it did not really bother me as much, because when it comes to not able to fit everything in one picture, I could use ultra wide. But in this case, since I didn't have ultra wide on the iPhone SE, I could just back up a little bit, take a picture, and you know it's going to be consistent, and you know it's going to be a great photo, especially when it comes from that phone. So like I said, yeah, it just depends on the person. For me, for a phone that costs $400, that is one of the best cameras out there that you could get. And even when it comes to recording off that phone, man, it was so good. Like I said, for a phone that costs so cheap, and for it to record that good, I felt like it was amazing, especially because I would include some of those videos into my YouTube videos, and you can't really notice the difference between that and using my Sony camera that I'm recording off of right now. So for a phone that costs $400, and for it to replace some of my clips that I was able to shoot on my Sony, and for nobody to notice really, or even myself, it's really hard to notice, I think that's a great thing. And now for the best part, Touch ID. Now, in this pandemic, if you have an iPhone, I'm pretty sure you guys are annoyed by now that it is so annoying using Face ID during the whole pandemic, during the whole wearing a mask thing. It's annoying. Like I said, when I moved on from Android to Apple, I knew that was one of the main things that was gonna bother me. I just knew it. So after a few months have passed, you tend kind of to get used to it. But there was a time where it would really annoy me that I would just deactivate Face ID and I would just swipe up. Like, I would just have a passcode and that's it. Because it was so annoying. Like, there was no point in me having Face ID. Unless I'm at home, then that'll be different. But most of the time when I'm at home, I could just deactivate Face ID and I can lock it whenever I want just by swiping up. So I would just deactivate it. So yeah, that's one of the hard things of adapting to using Face ID. Now, when I had the iPhone SE, that one had Touch ID, which I love so much. I feel like it's so much easier. Even when you're pulling it out of your pocket, you could place your thumb already on the Touch ID. So by the time it reaches your face, it's already unlocked. So I think, in my opinion, that's a lot more quicker than Face ID. It might not be as secure as Face ID, but at the end of the day, for me personally, I think Touch ID is just a way better way to go. Like I said, especially in this pandemic, it's a lot more easier to use. Even when you open up the apps, you just double press the button and it'll open up your apps you have open. For somebody like me, I just love that. Now, even on this iPhone 12, the gestures are seamless. I do like them a lot. They are very smooth, but it's just having that physical button there all the time just makes you feel like it's guaranteed. It's always going to be safe. It's always going to be responsive. I loved it. So that's one of the things I hope they bring back on the next iPhone. Now, for the battery. This is probably the only thing that bothered me from the iPhone SE of 2020. It did not have the greatest battery life. That phone will only last me around 4 to 5 hours on a heavy use day, whereas in the iPhone 12 will last me between 6 to 7 hours. So that's a 2 to 3 hour difference of usage. And when you will use the camera, when you will record, when you will play games on it, when you will put the phone under heavy stress, then that's when you will notice the battery drop super quick. Yes, I know it does have good standby time, all iPhones do, but when you would use the phone, you would notice that the battery would decrease pretty quick. So you would have to find yourself running to a charger every other hour throughout the day. Myself, when I would use it in the morning, by the time it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I would have to charge it up again. So you do tend to get used to that. You kind of create a routine for yourself where you know when you will be able to charge the phone. But that's probably one of the weaknesses that this phone came with, just because it was such a strong little phone. Like I said, it came with the A13 Bionic chip. It's such a small battery, such a small phone. Maybe the A13 is too strong for the battery to handle, which is why the battery life wasn't that great. That's probably one of the only reasons that I had to switch over to a different phone, because the battery life. Like I said, everything else on it was pretty good. It was buttery smooth. The screen did not bother me at all, even though it was only a 720p LCD screen. It did include wireless charging though. I'll say that for a $400 phone to include wireless charging is pretty nice having there, because there are a lot of phones out there that start at $300, $400 that don't even include wireless charging. They don't even think about it. So for a phone that cheap to include wireless charging is a thumbs up for me. One of the things that I wish they did have was Magsafe. So I know Magsafe was introduced last year to the iPhone 12 lineup. It would have been really cool to be able to buy one of those chargers that you can stick behind your iPhone where it charges it while you're using it at the same time. So if you were able to do that on the iPhone SE of last year, man, that would be so great. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't choose the iPhone 12 mini this year, just because the battery life. That kind of scared me off, which is one of the reasons why I chose the iPhone 12. It's not the best of the lineup, but it does give me pretty good battery life. So that's been it. something that I've been wanting to get off my chest for a few months now, just because, man, I love that phone so much. I'm telling you right now, I love that phone. So many people overlook that phone. They saw it as this puny phone that can hang, when in reality it can hang. Now, like I said, it didn't have the best battery life, but when it came to everything else, when it came to taking pictures, video recording, the speed, the performance of the phone itself is one of the best out there, especially for that price. And I've been hearing rumors that this is going to be an iPhone SE 3. They're saying that it's going to kind of look like the iPhone 8 Plus, maybe around the same size. The front of the screen, from what I see, is going to look a little different. It's going to have a punch hole in the front. So what I'm thinking is that it's still going to have Face ID, and it's also going to have Touch ID, but on the side of the phone where the power button is at. So possibly that can happen maybe the end of this year, maybe the beginning of next year, who knows. But from what I heard is that it's going to have a little punch hole in the front, and it's going to be a bigger phone with a bigger battery. Hopefully that phone comes out, because I'm pretty sure I'll get that phone. But like I said, who knows? Apple's full of surprises. Before you guys leave, make sure you guys subscribe to my channel. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.